Hello, folks. Welcome to this edition of Al's Joint as we continue to fight against the Trump Epstein pedophile ring and the damage it's done to this country. As we pay homage to the Friends of Distinction, Raisin in the Grass, a 1968 classic. Ooh, that's what music would do. So we have guests today from the great state of Virginia, Washington, and Ohio. So let's take the gloves off and let's get at it. Today we want to get into the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, right? I want to folks to be able to chime in, whatever you feel like saying. If you want to connect it to another part of what's going on in the country, that directly, that's fine as well. I know yesterday I watched the speech he gave on Air Force One on his way back from Scotland, where they asked him about an individual who used to work for them, a teenager. And he stated that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell stole her from them.
I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her.
Like she was a piece of property. He made that statement on the plane. And I just don't understand how people think that that's acceptable. Can you imagine if any other politician had said an individual who was running a sex trafficking ring stole one of his employees from him? Was working down in Mar-a-Lago in the I forget what they said, the sauna room or whatever. So initially the spa, that's right. Initially his argument was that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his circle because he was a creep. Then we go to here to find out if you let him talk, he'll tell on himself, right? He goes on to say that it wasn't that, it was because he told him, you stole one of my employees once, and then he did it again. He stole this teenager, and that was it. He was kicked out. To me, it never ends. So folks know what my position is. I believe that our president, Donald Trump, is a pedophile. So why don't we start with you, Brother Painter, because you live in the middle of MAGA country. How you still survive other than those 4 shotguns you have?
Hey, you forgot about the 2 AKs, but
I was trying not to put your business out there, but
no, I want to start off saying, look, I'm looking at this whole situation, even though it's being made political, on the TV screens and in the news. I don't see this as really a political issue. I see this as a moral issue, and it's not the left or the right or the moderate people, or it's not the liberals. This is an issue of people taking young girls and using them as sex slaves and selling them as sex slaves. And that's how I see it. And unfortunately, and I think hopefully we can help stop making it a political issue, because now, J.D. Vance, who everyone knows is from Ohio, it was out the other day saying Obama and Biden, didn't do anything. Well, they forget that Epstein was arrested and jailed during Trump's first term. And those documents were in the possession of the government during Trump's first term. It's like they're trying now to mitigate any fallout from it. And I think it's just straight out simple. Forget that I'm a liberal. Forget that people are on the right or the left. This is a moral issue. If you look, you have children, you have grandchildren, you have great grandchildren. If you go to church, you look around the church, there are children there. This is a moral issue that needs to be corrected. And I don't care who you are. Okay. If you are the president of this United States or a former president of the United States, you need to be held accountable. And as I see it, J.D. Vance was defending Trump yesterday. I see him just as guilty, because he's saying that it's okay to be a pedophile depending on who you are. So I find that a shame and a disgrace to this country. If you have any morals whatsoever, regardless of your political party, we're not trying I'm not trying to get you to change parties. I'm trying to say, look, this is wrong. Step up. Enough is enough.
Brother Davis.
Well, I totally agree with him as far as the morality issue of it all. I did a little research on because I didn't know that he was a convicted sex offender. In 2008, as he was speaking on earlier, and that the powerful stuck with him. And this is an article from USA Today that came to my attention as I was looking at some of this stuff concerning, and I would say empirical thoughts, because that's what it seems to me. That they want an empirical society, that some rules apply to everybody except the powerful and the rich. So he was accused or pled guilty and in prison, which he could have been in prison for life, but he wasn't. And this thing that kind of struck me to my core when I read this stuff. And Acosta, I forgot what he's the secretary of. Well, I know he was under the Trump cabinet or in the Trump cabinet, and he allowed this man to plead guilty to 2 state felonies on prostitution charges, pay restitution to the victims, register as a sex offender, and receive 13 months in the county jail. And these were with minors, right? But the caveat to that is the 13 months in the county jail, he did 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, because he had a work release deal. And he did those in his Palm Beach office, Florida. And then while he was in jail, or when he did do his time in jail, they had him in a private wing of the jail with his own, security detail. So, I read that, and that just struck me. That, again, for the rich and powerful, how they feel that rules don't apply.
Brother Johnson.
Yeah, well, I agree with both Mr. Painter and Dwayne in that it's power grab, and also it's a moral issue. One of the things that comes to my attention in this whole fiasco over the last 30 years is this cultural war. There's a cultural war going on that most people don't recognize. And it has elements of racism. It has a lot of politics, and it has a lot of power and economic manipulation involved. And I think that the advent of the computers and the news cycle and the instantaneous response and in the media has caused this to blow up even more so than 20 years ago, when the threat of a slander would be a big issue. But now they don't even care about lawsuits and slander, and they're just using confusion and repetitive messages to push the politics in their direction in order to support the power grabs politically. And so I think that Epstein's sitting on, I don't care if it's Democrats, Republicans, or what have you, he's sitting on some names of some powerful people that are involved in this pedophile ring. And the sad part about it is that at one time, the American people would stand up in unison against this kind of sickness, and now they're being distracted with all kinds of different issues that whatever sticks to the wall. I tried to throw out Beyonce the other day. he tried. He just out there trying to manipulate the media because that's where he came from. He came from the media circus, and he's using that to protect his allies and to attack anybody that comes at him with some kind of moral compass. And he waves the flag of Christianity, but he doesn't follow it at all. And I don't see how American people are falling for this con artist and in this shell game that he plays on a daily basis. I think the last poets used to say they try to keep us confused and divided, tricked and undecided.
I think we're at that cutting edge right now where we can do that. Now, I grew up in the '60s. Okay, I saw the the marches and the demonstrations and the voices, and they kept getting louder and louder, and it made a difference. And I think we can make a difference if we stay on point and don't get distracted and say, look, this president has to be held accountable to the law, same as anyone else.
That's not, but now because of what Trump has done, or Trump and his cronies has done, everybody sees that it directly affects them now. And with this Epstein thing, and especially with them ready to pardon, what's her name, Ghislaine Maxwell,
Yes.
because that's going to happen. I truly believe that will happen because Trump gonna cover himself. And as I say, you got the backing of the Supreme Court.
And I've talked to people in this red state about it, and Republicans. I would not be surprised if when we go to the voting booths the next time around that they don't have ICE agents stationed at the voting booths to quote unquote keep illegals out, but really to intimidate the election. And
Yes.
and I've told my son we probably, until things change, we've probably seen the last quote unquote free election for quite some time.
Until we get folks to realize that this class warfare is winning, has been winning for the last couple centuries. We're going to be right here trying to figure out, do we separate? Do we go? And I can understand where people get those notions because everything else has been so futile to them. And they've seen it. They've seen lifetimes come and go and nothing changed. We did a training with the young labor leaders. And in this training, one of the exercises we did, we took 100 candy bars, the little miniature candy. We took 100 candy bars, put them on the table. We took 90 of the candy bars away and said, look, these are the people who made the candy bars, who own this, right? And out of the 20 people that's left, y'all got to figure out, how do you split up that 10%? Now, these are young labor leaders out of college, fresh, right there. They want to run through they want to save the world. And their only focus was who gets what of those 10 remaining candy bars. They never once said, hey, wait a minute, why the hell did you take 90% of the product away? Their only argument was, how do we divide this 10% up amongst everybody here? While those few people there got 90%. And until we can get folks to understand that dynamic and what they've done to us, because the poor man who lives next to me, whether white, black, brown, Indian, whatever, we have the same community of interests.
Well, earlier we were talking about the moral conscience of the country. And I just wanted to touch on the deterioration of the basic moral values that were born out of the church establishment institutions and how they've been corrupted. But at the same time, there's still a basic structure there of value. And I raised my son to believe the first thing on your journey to be a man is to show open love and affection for your mother and to protect your family. And that was your first goal. That was your first initiation into manhood. And I don't see those values being transmitted to this generation. And I see a lot of confusion. And that's why we have the P. Diddy and Epstein and what's the R.
Weinstein.
Kelly
Thank you.
and all these you know poor self-image, the record industry promoting tearing down the image of women. And so it's being translated into the culture.
I talked about being raised in the South. What I haven't talked about was I was baptized Methodist, and I was married to a Baptist preacher's daughter for 24 years. And I lived in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. And so, I look at what's taught down there, and it isn't the value of life and how, and I'm talking about preachers because I'm talking about having been part of the church in a significant way, being my father-in-law, being the pastor. How do these preachers sit in or stand in front of their congregation and say nothing about what's going on in this country about these girls, and say nothing about what could happen to the congregation, looking around that congregation, looking at the young girls and boys, because it's not just girls, but young girls and boys, and say nothing? How can these people go into the church and say, I believe in God, I believe in his preaching, but I'm not going to do anything when it comes to this because, and it might be for a particular issue. It might be, I believe in the right to life. Well, you believe in the right to life, but life continues after you're born. If you're not going to do something for these girls that were put into slavery through sex or for sex, then you don't believe in a good life. You're not following the word of God. You're a fake. And how these pastors cannot address that. And it doesn't mean they have to give up their political beliefs, but they need to have that as part of the pathway to sending a message as to what's right.
Yeah, you're exactly right. My grandfather was a Baptist minister. My great grandfather was a Baptist minister. My grandfather, he found the calling way late in his life because he saw all the contradictions because he grew up in the church and he saw the hypocrites. And no, I agree. That's why I applaud only those progressive ministers that use their platform to speak out against this kind of pedophiles and all the evils that are being normalized by this administration.
So this web is so deep and complex, and I don't care. I think a couple of you mentioned earlier, if Bill Clinton is in that book, his ass should go to jail too. Republican, Democrat, I don't care who you are, independent. If you did something to children, you need to be sent to jail or worse.
Absolutely.
So look, gentlemen, I want to thank you all for taking time to have this conversation with us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Blessings
take care.
all.
Well, that's the end of another episode, folks. I want to thank folks for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons below. And also, put your comments below so we can know what you're thinking. If you have any ideas, any thought, put them below. Join me next Friday as we continue to take the fight to those far right-wing nut pedophiles and take our country back. Peace.
This episode of Al's Joint is brought to you by the Peabody Highlander 1975 through 1981 Class Reunion Committee.